Truly, when you are a young straight woman, your life is in the trenches. Grab your kids, wear your kimonos, and check out the coziest Ghibli movie of the year. It's about two siblings who go on crazy adventures together, and the animation is so cute. So bring your little boy and girl to see Grave of the Fireflies. With the movie out in theaters, I felt like now would be the time for me to finally do a roast video for the book It Ends With Us. I do want to do a movie reaction in the future, but I don't want to pay for the movie, so I'm gonna wait for it to stream before we cross that bridge. I'm also not going to talk about the drama that's been going on with how the movie has been promoted, because that's a whole other can of worms, and I bet you there's going to be more developments and reveals in the future. So this book is about a girl who works at a flower shop and falls for a man, and it seems to be this great love story, but he turns out to be abusive. The story is more about the cycle of abuse because she actually grew up watching her dad abuse her mother. But this is also a book written by Colleen Hoover, and if you have been here for the previous roast videos I've done for her other books, that probably does not bode well, especially for the subject matter. However, I did find that out of all the books that I've read so far by her, this is actually the best one. Now, is the bar very low? Yes, but it is the only book, as far as I know, where the narrative actually shows that this person is abusive and shows that this is wrong. This book is actually inspired by Colleen Hoover's own experience with her father abusing her mother, and she dedicates this book to the strength that her mom had to leave her dad. Even if I hadn't read the author's note and known about this experience beforehand, I could actually tell this already from reading this story. Because as much as we drag Colleen for being a ridiculous writer, and there are many parts of this book that are very ridiculous, of which I will read out loud to you, I will say that the depictions of abuse did come from a real place, because there were certain parts and dynamics and emotions that were expressed that were similar to my own experiences with my ex. My critique about this book isn't that it's unbelievable or even romanticizing abuse, because it clearly sets up to show the cycle of abuse and how you can end up in this situation and why women stay. I think it is still totally valid for survivors to read this and feel validated by it. And honestly, I'm just gonna say it, I had a good time reading this book too. I was running on 1 hour of sleep, and I was stuck on an international flight, and I was gagged and gooped by the romance that the main character has with the good guy in the book and how he felt protective over her in that situation and punched the abuser out. And I also have a very low bar because I had just read Verity, which was like one of the worst books I've ever read. So the fact that we even got a book that purposely acknowledges when the guy is terrible and abusive, who would have thought, really? Truly revolutionary compared to some of the other books we have seen from her. That being said, the book is still goofy as hell, and that's why I'm doing a roast for it. There are just so many ridiculous lines that we gotta poke fun at. I do think in terms of discussing the problematic aspects of the book, I would say it's not that the book romanticizes abuse, it's more so the lack of writing skill that makes the depiction of abuse feel more clunky and you could argue even irresponsible, which is weird because I found out Colleen Hoover also used to be a social worker, and yet with the way that certain situations are handled in this book, I don't think some of it was responsible, especially towards the ending. Again, I will dive more into this when we get to this part so you understand what I mean. But for the most part, we're just gonna be poking fun at the characters and the writing and kikiing together. Many people have mistaken It Ends With Us to be a love story prior to reading the book or watching the movie, and it's not, and they get misled. So I'm here to remind you that it is absolutely not that, and you should be looking elsewhere for romance stories. There are actually some out there that you can even interact with, like Love and Deepspace, which is the sponsor of today's video. I've talked about playing dating sim games before on my channel, but this one really stood out to me because it's entirely 3D. You get to personalize your characters, and there's English voice actors. You can engage with your 3D partner in real time, and they will respond uniquely to your choices. There's Zane, who is a brilliant but serious cardiac surgeon. There's Raphael, who's a fire-wielding artist and has a very sensitive soul. There's Silas, who is a mysterious leader of the dark forces. And there's Xavier, who is a mysterious deep space hunter. They just launched an event called the MISC Invasion, where there's a bunch of new gameplay features like the claw machine simulator. And then as you dive deeper into the story, there's all these challenges that come with the MISC Invasion, which require you to do teamwork with your love interest. So I like that there's a balance of romance and adventure, because that's exactly what I look for in books too. So if you would like to embark on this journey, I will have a link in my description for you to download it. And now we must talk about a story that is less giggly fun, and that is It Ends With Us. I'm gonna go ahead and dive straight in with chapter 1. So when the novel opens, we are introduced to a character named Lily, who is sitting sitting on a roof of a building in Boston. She's looking out at the city and the stars, and she's thinking about death because she had just come from her father's funeral. As everyone with daddy issues knows, it is a very complicated set of emotions to experience when your father dies, but you know that he was an asshole. She has a lot of resentment for her father abusing her mother, and she's very much lost in her thoughts. And this is when a man joins her on the roof. He is too busy with his own weird stuff going on because he's like angrily kicking a bunch of patio chairs. And that is, of course, the quote-unquote love interest that she will have. And I'm thinking, dang, your first meeting with a love interest involves him being aggressive and kicking things around. Could this be foreshadowing, perhaps? But maybe the reason why she didn't see the signs that he has anger issues is because she was so distracted by the fact that the chairs were made of marine-grade polymer. I'm not kidding. Marine-grade polymer is constantly referenced in this scene and then continues to be referenced in other chapters whenever chairs are brought up. For example, he kicks the chair repeatedly over and over. Rather than give way beneath the blunt force of his foot, all the chair does is scoot farther and farther away from him. That chair must be grade from marine-grade polymer. I once watched my father back over an outdoor patio table made of marine-grade polymer, and I practically laughed at him. Another example, my outlet used to be gardening. Anytime I was stressed, I just go out to the backyard and pull every single weed I could find. But since the day I moved to Boston 2 years ago, I haven't had a backyard or a patio. I don't even have weeds. Maybe I need to invest in a marine-grade polymer patio chair. And then in another scene where it's talking about a former roommate that she had, but now she's moving to Boston, it feels like my wings were just clipped. Where is the marine-grade polymer chair when I need one? And then in another scene where she's looking at a portrait, the picture is blurred, so it was hard to make out at first, but I can recognize that hair from anywhere. That's my hair. It's hard to miss, along with the marine-grade polymer lounge chair I'm lying on. And then in a future scene where the main guy is telling her about their first time meeting, he says, "You remember when I walked out onto the roof, how angry I was?" I nod again. He was kicking the chair. It was before he knew marine-grade polymer was virtually indestructible. Girl, are you sponsored by marine-grade polymer chairs or something? Because you keep on praising how indestructible these chairs are. This book could turn into a post-apocalyptic story, and the marine-grade polymer chairs would still be here. Anyway, going back to the actual story, she is on the rooftop. She sees this dude barging in, kicking all the marine-grade polymer chairs, and then she gets to really observe him. I noticed for the first time how his shirt doesn't fit him very well around his biceps. It fits him everywhere else, but his arms are huge. He begins fishing around in his pockets until he finds what he's looking for, and in what I'm sure is probably an effort to release even more of his aggression, he lights up a joint. I'm 23. I've been through college and have done this very same recreational drug a time or two. I'm not going to judge this guy for feeling the need to toke up in private, but that's the thing. He's not in private. He just doesn't know that yet. First of all, I like how despite seeing this stranger being aggressive and you're alone on a rooftop, and usually as a woman you would instinctively feel fear, she is too distracted by 1, the marine-grade polymer chairs, and 2, how hot he is. I also like how in order to show that a man is hot, he must be wearing an extra small size t-shirt. Second of all, you can really tell that an older woman is writing this book and not an actual 23-year-old because she's making the main character go like, oh, marijuana? The devil's lettuce? Truly the sign of a bad boy. I can't help but notice how unfortunately cute he is. No, cute is an insult. This guy is beautiful. Well manicured, smells like money, looks to be several years older than me. His eyes crinkle in the corners as they follow me, and his lips seem to frown even when they aren't. When I reach the side of the building that overlooks the street, I lean forward and stare down at the cars below, trying not to appear impressed by him. I can tell by his haircut alone that he's the kind of man people are easily impressed by, and I refuse to feed into his ego. Not that he's done anything to make me think he even has one, but he is wearing a casual Burberry shirt, and I'm not sure I've ever been on a radar of someone who could casually afford one. This is perhaps the first red flag to his character, a douchebag who is into brand names. So you're telling me his nails are manicured and he's wearing an extra small Burberry shirt so his muscles pop out. Girl, you may be barking up the wrong tree here. What if that was the actual twist? I hear footsteps approaching from behind, and then he leans against the railing next to me. Out of the corner of my eye, I watch as he takes another hit of his joint. When he's finished, he offers it to me, but I wave it off. The last thing I need is to be under the influence around this guy. His voice is a drug in itself. It's weed. If you don't take that joint, I will. Because why are we acting like he just offered heroin to you? You know, it's not that serious. So they have a conversation to get to know each other better, and Lily learns that the main guy works as a neurosurgeon. What kind of residency? Are you a doctor? He nods. Neurosurgeon. Less than a year left of my residency, and then it's official. Stylish, well-spoken, and smart. And smokes pot. If this were an SAT question, I would ask which one didn't belong. Should doctors be smoking weed? Girl, what do you mean? He's a doctor, not a nun. As long as he's not high on the job, what is the problem? Also, if we're gonna be real here, he's a surgeon. So that means he's probably on Adderall and Coke too. Like, weed is just amateur hour. Who lives there? He asked. No one really knows. It's one of the great mysteries of Boston. What's another great mystery of Boston? He laughs and then looks at me inquisitively. What's another great mystery of Boston? Your name. As soon as I say it, I slap my hand against my forehead. It sounded so much like a cheesy pickup line. The only thing I can do is laugh at myself. Not only did you say the cringiest response, you had to slap your forehead with your hand like you're Homer Simpson going, dope. I would have jumped off the rooftop right there. It ends with us, literally. He smiles. It's Ryle, he says. Ryle Kincaid, aka the most fictional name ever. I saw the trailer for the movie and even just hearing the actor say his name out loud, it took me out. I'd give anything for a great name. You don't like the name Lily? My last name, ... is Bloom. But what makes it even worse is that I absolutely love gardening. I love flowers, plants, growing things. It's my passion. It's always been my dream to open a florist shop, but I'm afraid if I did, people wouldn't think my desire was authentic. They would think I was trying to capitalize off my name and that being a florist isn't really my dream job. Who gives a shit? Like, I wish this was my only problem in life. But really, these characters are truly competing to see who has the cringiest name. However, Lily might be the winner here because she reveals that her middle name is Blossom. So her full name is Lily Blossom Bloom. To which Ryle replies, goddamn. Goddamn indeed. You got a guy named Ryle to feel sorry for you. Like, now that's overkill. I mean, I guess if I were writing a character named Lily Bloom, I might as well just go all the way and make her middle name Blossom too. Like, go hard or go home. This is like if my parents named me Cho Chink, so I gotta run an Asian restaurant. So the two of them begin to flirt and tell each other increasingly intimate naked truths. So a naked truth is something where they literally just made that up. But they're like, okay, this is a truth that we tell each other and it's so vulnerable that we gotta call it the naked truth. So Lily's naked truth is that her father was abusive. It was a constant pattern where he would hit the mom and then he would spend the next week or two making up for it. He would do nice things like buy her flowers or take them out to a nice dinner, or he would even buy Lily stuff because he knew that she hated it whenever they fought. And so she admits that when she was a kid, she found herself looking forward to the nights that they would fight because she knew if he hit her, the 2 weeks that followed would be great. Of course, she would rather have him not hit her at all, but if it was gonna happen anyway, then, you know, might as well get something out of it. And then when she got older, she realized that not doing anything about it made her just as guilty. And then she spent the rest of her life hating him for being a bad person. She also realizes, like, maybe she's bad too for even thinking that way when she was a little kid. That's pretty complicated to sort out. Anyway, Ryle replies, Lily, there is no such thing as bad people. We're all just people who sometimes do bad things. I open my mouth to respond, but his words strike me silent. We're all just people who sometimes do bad things. I guess that's true in a way. No one is exclusively bad, nor is anyone exclusively good. Some are just forced to work harder at suppressing the bad. Wow, thanks for explaining what he literally just said. I would have never understood what that meant if you hadn't just repeated it verbatim to me and explained it like I was a 5-year-old. Gee, I wonder if this is the whole message of the book. This is when you really gotta brace yourself for Colleen Hoover's attempt at nuance coming ahead. It is true that you can't box people into a binary of being a good person or a bad person, but I do think it is kind of weird to say we're all just people who sometimes do bad things when the bad things are physically abusing your partner who you are supposed to love unconditionally and take care of. In response, Ryle reveals that he lost a child patient because the child's brother shot him accidentally. That's why he was so angry and kicking the chairs around, because he was so upset about what had happened. And then Lily also shares that she gave the eulogy at her father's funeral and couldn't think of anything nice to say, so she stood there for 2 minutes in purposeful silence. So we're really getting into some deep, heavy shit right away, right? So let's keep the momentum going with like us ping-ponging the naked truths back and forth. She asked him, tell me the most recent thought you've had that most people wouldn't say out loud. He pulls his hand up behind his head and looks me straight in the eye. I wanna fuck you. My mouth falls open. Then I clamp it shut again. I think I might be speechless. He shoots me a look of innocence. You asked for the most recent thought, so I gave it to you. You're beautiful. I'm a guy. If you were into one night stands, I would take you downstairs to my bedroom and I will fuck you. That was your most recent thought? After her sharing that her dad was an abusive asshole and you shared that a kid got shot? Weird segue, but okay. He's like, yeah, I'm so distraught over this kid that died that I would kick around these marine grade polymer chairs. But anyway, I wanna fuck you. I mean, is he a neurosurgeon? Because he has like the capability to multitask totally totally different topics in his brain altogether. I need a minute to regroup after that one, I say with a laugh. I try to think of something with a little shock value, but I can't get over the fact that he just said that out loud. Maybe because he's a neurosurgeon and I never picture someone so educated throwing around the word fuck so casually. You didn't expect a neurosurgeon to curse? The writing for this book is so weird because in her voice, it simultaneously feels like this is a 40-year-old woman, but also a 14-year-old girl. Also, at some point while they're sharing these very intimate details about themselves, she tells him that she once lost her virginity to a homeless boy. We will talk more about that later. But ultimately, Ryle has clearly expressed his interest in her, but he also says that he only has one-night stands and he never wants to get married or have children. And even though Lily is interested in Ryle and very attracted to him, she can't imagine having sex without it leading to a relationship, which is totally valid for both of them. So then we get to chapter 2, and this is where we get into her teenage journals that she starts to reread. The thing about these journals is they are in a very unique format because they are written as letters to Ellen Degeneres. I refuse to admit that I kept a diary when I was younger because that was so cliche. Instead, I convinced myself that what I was doing was cool because it wasn't technically a diary. I addressed each of my entries to Ellen Degeneres because I began watching her show the first day it aired in 2003 when I was just a little girl. I watched it every day after school and was convinced Ellen would love me if she got to know me. I wrote letters to her regularly until I turned 16, but I wrote them like one would write entries in a diary. Of course, I knew the last thing Ellen Degeneres probably wanted was a random girl's journal entries. Luckily, I never actually sent any in, but I still liked addressing all the entries to her, so I continued to do that until I stopped writing in them altogether. So you didn't have a diary because that was cringe. So instead, you write letters to Ellen Degeneres, which is actually even more cringe. Basically, we have a girl named Lily Blossom Bloom who wants to be a florist and who also writes letters to Ellen Degeneres about her homeless boyfriend. Now that is camp. Truly no other author could think of something like that, so I will at least give that to Colleen Hoover. Anyway, I know people like to make fun of her writing these diary entries to Ellen, but I actually didn't mind this when I was reading it. Like, did it age poorly? Yes, but I can buy the cringe factor in it because she's a teenager at the time that she was writing these diaries, and she had a bad home life. So she found an outlet through a one-sided parasocial relationship with a celebrity who doesn't actually care whether she lives or dies. Some of you bitches could probably say the same for yourself. This is basically a storytelling device so we can find out a previous relationship she had when she was a teenager. Specifically, this tells the story of Atlas and Lily. Basically, as a teenager, like when she was 15, she noticed a boy who was living in an abandoned house behind her. The boy's name would turn out to be Atlas, who was this kid in her school who always wore the same clothes every day, and he smelled, and she really felt for him because he clearly didn't have anyone looking out for him and he was homeless, and so she would begin to leave him food, and she would lend him her dad's clothes, and she would let him shower at her house. Like, she really became a resource for him because she felt so bad that there was like a boy in her school that didn't have parents that looked after him. And so the two of them became closer and began to fall in love, and he would also become someone who was there for her when her dad hurt her mom. They were basically like two kids that had very terrible childhood homes growing up, and they trauma bonded through that. That's the setup for how she meets Atlas, and we'll go into more details about their relationship developing in future journal entries. In the next chapter, it shows 6 months later, Lily uses her inheritance from her dad to buy a storefront to convert into a flower shop. At this time, a woman named Alyssa offers to work for Lily, and the two of them become best friends. I want to point out the concept of her flower shop. What if instead of showcasing the sweet side of flowers, we showcase the villainous side? Instead of pink accents, we use darker colors like a deep purple or even black. And instead of just spring and life, we also celebrate winter and death. Alyssa's eyes were wide. But ... what if someone wants pink flowers though? Well, we'll still give them what they want, of course, but we'll also give them what they don't know they want. She scratches her cheek. So you're thinking black flowers? Someone once told me that there is no such thing as bad people. We're all just people who sometimes do bad things. That stuck with me because it's so true. We've all got a little bit of good and evil in us. I want to make that our theme. Instead of painting the walls a putrid sweet color, we paint them dark purple with black accents. And instead of only putting out the usual pastel displays of flowers, in boring crystal vases that make people think of life, we go edgy, brave, and bold. We put out displays of darker flowers wrapped in things like leather or silver chains, and rather than put them in crystal vases, we'll stick them in black onyx or ... I don't know, ... purple velvet vases lined with silver studs. The ideas are endless. There are floral shops on every corner for people who love flowers, but what floral shop caters to all the people who hate flowers? Girl, how does a man-whore doctor's ham-fisted speech about humanity being too complex to put in a binary of good or evil relate to you making a Hot Topic version of a flower shop? You know, when the photos of the It Ends With Us movie adaptation came out, people were aghast at how Blake Lively was dressed. I agree, because it takes a lot of work to make Blake Lively frumpy. But then when you think about her character decide to make an edgy flower shop where black flowers are wrapped in silver chains, suddenly it starts to make a lot of sense. They're just being consistent with the character's taste. Anyway, so they are cleaning up the storefront when Lily falls and hurts her ankle. So Alyssa calls her husband Marshall and her brother for help. And then when Alyssa's brother arrives, Lily sees that it's Ryle. So that's how they meet again, but they pretend to not know each other for Alyssa's sake. Alyssa and Marshall leave to get a first aid kit, which means that Ryle and Lily are alone and Ryle is helping her out. One of his hands is holding the ice against my ankle, but the other one is wrapped around my bare foot. He's brushing his thumb back and forth like it's no big deal that he's touching me, but his hand on my foot is way more noticeable than the pain in my ankle. Not the bare feet and him rubbing your little toes. Keep in mind this is supposed to be an intimate moment, but he's wearing a bright red onesie in this scene the whole time, because when Ryle and Marshall got called up, they were at a bar that was hosting onesie day. So really the costuming of this entire story is whack. His eyes narrow as his hand moves to the underneath of my foot. He slowly traces his fingers from the tops of my toes down to my heel. I still very much want to fuck you. This is truly how you seduce someone. Just wear a onesie, rub their feet, and say you want to fuck them, especially when, you know, they broke their ankle and they can't run away. That's like the perfect time to do it. However, Alyssa walks in during this time and she's gasping because she thinks that he said this to her as a total stranger. I mean, they kind of are, but like she doesn't know that they had met before. So she apologizes for his behavior and says that he's so drunk from the bar, but Lily says, "It's fine, Alyssa. Lots of people want to fuck me." I glance back at Ryle and he's still casually stroking my foot. At least your brother speaks his mind. Not a lot of people have the courage to say what they're actually thinking. Is that really a rare quality? A man being crude and telling you he wants to fuck you even though he doesn't actually know you? Surely no woman has ever experienced that walking around her neighborhood. It's a universal fact that every man just seeing a hot woman he's attracted to always just keeps to themselves. Despite them being attracted to each other, they decide to stay away from one another because they want different things. As Lily recovers from her sprained ankle for a week, she continues reading her teenage journals. So this is where we find out that she's been letting Atlas into her house so he can shower, and they watch Ellen together. They become friends. He sees that she likes gardening and he will give like gardening tools that he finds for her. There's this other time where she's upset after seeing her dad push her mom down and Atlas is there to comfort her. You know, just things like that are making them get a lot closer. I also feel obligated to note that she's 15 at the time, he's 18. I've seen people comment that it's not okay for them to be in a relationship because she's like a minor at the time. And we could have a whole separate conversation about that, but we got bigger fish to fry, which is the main guy being an abuser, okay? Like, not yet, but he sure is being a weirdo right now, because in chapter 5, a week after the foot injury, when the ankle was all healed up, she gets a knock on the door and Ryle is there. Do you have any idea how many doors I've knocked on to find you? 29. 2 ... 9. Why did you knock on 29 doors? I asked with a tilt of my head. You never told me which apartment was yours. You said you lived in this building, but I couldn't remember if you even said which floor. And for the record, I almost started with the 3rd floor. I would have been here an hour ago if I went with my gut instinct. These next couple of months are the most important months in my entire career. I have to be focused. I'm closing in on the end of my residency and then I'll have to sit for my exams. But for the past week, I haven't been able to get you out of my head. I don't know why. At work, at home, all I can think about is how crazy it feels when I'm near you, and I need you to make it stop, Lily. Please make it stop, just once. That's all it'll take, I swear. When is the last time you've had sleep? I ask him. I just got off a 48-hour shift. Focus, Lily. Ryle, I say carefully. Did you seriously just knock on 29 doors so you could tell me that the thought of me is making your life hell and I should have sex with you so that you'll never have to think of me again? Are you kidding me right now? Well, ... Yeah, but ... It sounds way worse when you say it. This man was so down bad that he would waste his limited free time knocking on 29 doors just for a crumb of coochie. What about this girl was so unique that he would try to find her rather than anybody else? Like, he's only met her 2 very short times. I guess maybe when you're a doctor, you don't get to meet many people outside of the hospital, so your social life is limited. But still, like, you can't even go on an app? I feel like you could find plenty of white girls to sleep with if you truly are that hot. He nods and then makes like he's walking toward the door to leave, but as soon as he reaches me, he spins towards me and slaps his palm against the door on either side of my head. I gasp at both his proximity and his persistence. Please, he says. I shake my head, even though my body is starting to trade sides and beg my mind to cave to him. I'm really good at it, Lily, he says with a grin. You'll barely even have to do any work. I try not to laugh, but his determination is as endearing as it is annoying. Good night, Ryle. His head drops between his shoulders and he shakes it back and forth. He pushes off the door and stands up straight. He half turns, heading for the hallway, but then suddenly drops to his knees in front of me. He wraps his arms around my waist. Please, Lily, he says through self-deprecating laughter. Please have sex with me. He's looking up at me with puppy dog eyes and a pathetic, hopeful grin. I want you so, so bad, and I swear once you have sex with me, you'll never hear from me again, I promise. This man is truly on his knees saying, please give me the coochie. She's laughing and she's saying, stop, Ryle, you are embarrassing yourself, get up. And he says, is that a yes? With a suggestive smile on his face. And she says, I don't feel sexy right now, Ryle. I worked all day, I'm exhausted, I smell like sweat and probably taste like dust. If you give me a little while to shower first, I might feel sexy enough to have sex with you. He's nodding feverishly before I'm even finished speaking. Shower, take all the time you need, I'll wait. I push him away from me and close the front door. He follows me to the bedroom and I tell him to wait on the bed for me. Listen, as much as we can clown on her for actually being into this, I hate to admit this myself, but first, please acknowledge how brave I am for admitting this in the first place. I hate to say it, I really do, but I probably would have had sex with him too. Hey, I told you, don't judge me, okay? I feel like he would be a good one-night stand. If I met a guy who was hot and charismatic and we got along really well and he did this, I would have done it because I'm a dumb bitch. And this is why we should be glad I am in a healthy monogamous relationship and not single. Like, this is probably how I ended up in a terrible relationship with my ex-boyfriend, because I just went with whoever gave me attention. And that's why, despite me dunking on the main girl for being a dumb bitch, I also understand where she's coming from. But listen, we don't victim blame here. Just because we are a dumb bitch doesn't mean we deserve to get hit. Anyway, so she takes an hour to get ready in the bathroom by showering and shaving, and then she steps out into her bedroom, and it turns out he fell asleep. Like, he's literally just snoring and missing his shot at some good cooch. She's laughing at how ridiculous this whole situation is. She just curls into bed and falls asleep next to him without doing anything. He wakes up the next day and he has to rush to work because he's late. He apologizes for last night and says he'll never do this again and this will be the last she'll hear from him. And you know what? He actually does stick to his word because she doesn't hear from him for 53 days. Like, this bitch actually counted. But during this time, she has been working on finally opening her flower shop. This is a soft opening, and to Lily's surprise, Ryle enters as the first customer at the shop and he buys flowers from her so he can give them to her. So the girl got flowers and sales. So far, I can understand why she is easily charmed by him. Like, most people who have a brain will probably be like, no, he was fucking weird for begging to have sex. But listen, some of us bitches are dumb out here, okay? Some of us bitches, if a guy is just nice to us, that's enough. And then we end up in a terrible situation. In another chapter, Lily is attending Alyssa's birthday party. And in Alyssa's home, she notices Ryle has an interesting picture hung up in his room. The picture is blurred, so it's hard to make out at first, but I can recognize that hair from anywhere. That's my hair. It's hard to miss, along with the marine gray polymer lounge chair I'm lying on. This is the picture he took on the rooftop the first night we met. He must have had it blown up and distorted so no one would notice what it was. So it's just some shitty, blurry photograph. Straight guys really don't know how to interior decorate. So she sees this and she gets mad because she's like, what the hell? You say you just want to sleep with me as a one-night stand, but you fall asleep with me instead. You buy me flowers. You hang weird-ass photos of me in your apartment. You get jealous when I bring a guy friend as a +1 to this party. There are so many mixed messages, and I actually like you romantically, so this is confusing me and it's hurting me. This is where he apologizes to her and admits that he has feelings for her after all. He says he took that photo because when he saw her, he felt like she was the most beautiful thing I'd ever seen, and I wanted to look at it every single day. And that night I showed up at your door, I went searching for you because no one in the history of my life has ever crawled under my skin and refused to leave like you did. I didn't know how to handle it. And the reason I sent you flowers this week is because I'm really, really proud of you for following your dream. But if I sent you flowers every time I've had the urge to send you flowers, you wouldn't even be able to fit inside your apartment, because that's how much I think about you. And yes, Lily, you're right. I'm hurting you, but I'm hurting too. And until tonight, ... I didn't know why. Why are you hurting? He drops his forehead to mine and says, because I have no idea what I'm doing. You made me want to be a different person, but what if I don't know how to be what you need? This is all new to me, and I want to prove to you that I want you for so much more than just one night. He looks so vulnerable right now. I want to believe the genuine look in his eye, but he's been so adamant since the day that I met him that he wants the exact opposite of what I want. And it terrifies me that I'll give in to him and he'll walk away. The way this is such a typical man. He doesn't know what he wants. He's giving mixed signals. He's love bombing and then making it seem like she's this force of nature that will change him. Keep in mind, they only met like 3 times. So he asked her how he can prove himself to her, and she says, let's not have sex and try dating, because she doesn't trust him to have a relationship with her yet. So he's like, okay, I'll do it. And they go ahead and sleep together in the same bed without actually having sex. So that's like their first step. Again, I hate to say it, but if I were Lily's age, I would have fallen for him too. And I know I'm outing myself as someone who's really fucking stupid, but that's really how I was when I was in my early 20s. And I think if a guy that was attractive and sweet and was saying all these nice things about me was promising these things and doing all these nice gestures for me, that would have been enough for me to think that he was a good guy. Like, my ex bought me flowers too. I thought, oh my gosh, that must mean he's a nice person. And then I would have been taken advantage of like I was in the past. So it is truly humbling to see that I am as dumb as a protagonist in a Colleen Hoover book. If you were a straight woman who was dating between the ages of 18 to 24, this really is a rite of passage. But it's okay, because I'm gay now, so we're all good. Anyway, so the next chapter, Lily is reading more of her journals where she and Atlas are gardening together. We get some ham-fisted metaphors about how plants need care to grow just like humans do. And then we get something that's not quite a metaphor, but something different. I pointed at his hands and said, you might want to take a quick shower before you go back. Compost is made from cow manure. Cow manure? Seriously? I grinned and nodded. He laughed a little, and then before I knew it, he was on the ground next to me, wiping his hands all over me. We were both laughing as he reached to the bag next to us and stuck his hand inside, then smeared it down my arms. Ellen, I am confident that the next sentence I am about to write has never been written or spoken aloud before. When he was wiping that cow shit on me, it was quite possibly the most turned on I have ever been. Girl, I was with you when you were making bad dating decisions, because I get it, but I could not relate to this part. There's trauma bonding and then there's cow shit bonding. We gotta pick one or the other, not both. It's really giving that one scene in He's Not All That where they were like throwing cow shit on each other, and that was supposed to be a cute little moment between them. And this really shows what happens when 2 traumatized kids bond. They just smear cow shit and think it's romantic because they're used to too much shit from the rest of their lives. Anyway, other than cow poop, things continue to be bleak for both of them. There's a part where Lily finds her dad choking her mom. So then Lily is like screaming and like running up and hitting him, and then he throws her off and she hits her forehead. So her mom drives her to the hospital, but tells her to tell the doctors that she has slipped on the ice and just lie about it. And this really upsets Lily because it makes her realize that this wasn't even the last straw for her mom. Like, she got hurt and her mom is still like lying for the dad, and this is kind of like where she realizes that the mom is never going to leave him. Meanwhile, Atlas is freezing in the decrepit house behind them by himself because, you know, Lily was too busy with everything else going on to remember to give him blankets. So, you know, he's not having a good time either. When they see each other again, he notices what happened to her head. She says she fell. He pulls up his sleeve to show all the cigarette burns that his parents had left him. And he says that he used to fall a lot too. So like, he gets it. He can clock it right away. He's like, I know a goddamn liar when I see one. And so at some point, she visits his place to bring the blankets and sees that there's nothing but a pile of his stuff in the corner and a big hole in the roof where there's been wind and snow coming in. Like, the state of the house is not livable at all. And she tells him to sleep in her bedroom tonight so he doesn't get pneumonia. At the sleepover, he shares more about his story, which is that he never met his real dad, It's always been him and his mom. She got remarried 5 years ago to a guy who didn't like him. They fought constantly, and then when he turned 18, they got in a big fight and he kicked Atlas out of the house. So then Atlas stayed at a friend's place for a bit, but then that friend's dad got a transfer to Colorado and they moved, and so Atlas didn't have anywhere to live, but he had to pretend that he did so that the friend and their family wouldn't feel bad. Then he wandered around for a few days and found that house behind Lily's and decided to just stay there until something better came along, or he graduated, and now he signed up to go to the Marines for 6 months. So after sharing all that, Lily is asking why didn't he just ask someone if they could help him, and he says he tried, but it's harder for an adult than a kid because he's 18. There's only 3 shelters in a 20-mile radius in their town. 2 of them were for battered women, and then the other one that he could go to is a homeless shelter that has like a few beds. There's always tons of lines, and it's too far away for him to walk there if he wanted to go to school every day. Being 18 also means that he's too old for foster care, and his mom can't get in trouble for kicking him out of the home. He can't get food stamps because he doesn't have a ride or money to go to his appointment. He doesn't have a car, so he can't find a job. Even when he does apply to places where he doesn't need a car, he doesn't have a phone number or an address to write down on the application, so that just really cuts down his chances. I'm summarizing all of these things because I do want to point out that despite how ridiculous some of the writing gets in this book, I can tell that Colleen Hoover does have experience as a social worker because of the way that she writes all these hurdles for homeless people to get on their feet. I remember when I was helping a woman who had escaped from a domestic violence situation and brought her kids with her, it was so hard for her to find a stable place for her and her kids to stay in. Even churches and shelters are not as reliable as you may think. There's so many hurdles along the way. So I have a lot of sympathy for Atlas and even Lily in both of their situations. So these were the parts that I enjoyed in the book because you see how 2 kids from broken homes are trying to survive together, especially when she hits us with this line: why in the heck would you want to serve a country that has allowed you to end up in this kind of situation? I'm not even sure who I'm mad at. I just kept thinking about our country and the whole world and how screwed up it is that people don't do more for each other. I don't know what humans started only looking out for themselves. Maybe it's always been this way. It made me wonder how many people out there were just like Atlas. It made me wonder if there were other kids at our school who might be homeless. I go to school every day and internally complain about it most of the time, but I've never once thought that school might be the only home some kids have. It's the only place Atlas can go and know he'll have food. I'll never be able to respect rich people now, knowing they willingly chose to spend their money on materialistic things rather than using it to help other people. When in the hell did Lily become so base? She really said fuck the military. In fact, fuck this whole country. This is perhaps the most base Colleen Hoover may be in the entire book. Like, Lily's about to fucking Katniss Everdeen up in this bitch. What really would have made this even better is if she started cussing out Ellen Degeneres in her letters and be like, you know what, you're part of the problem, bitch. Anyway, so then we go back to present day in the next chapter where Lily just finished reading that part in her journal and she's like, damn, I used to be so based back then. I mean, she doesn't think that, but I would like to think so. And she sees Ryle has texted her to visit her after a long shift at the hospital, and then she tells him she's ready to have sex with him, so that was really quick and easy. Almost defeats the purpose of telling him that they would wait like 2 chapters ago, but okay. So they end up doing it. It's a great time for both of them, but they just had to end this chapter with this line. He slowly pulls out of me, coming down on his forearms. You warned me. You said one time with you wouldn't be enough. You said you were like a drug, but you failed to tell me you were the most addictive kind. Listen, I may be a dumb bitch, but even that line would have taken me out. You don't say the cringiest line after post-nut clarity. Read the room, okay? Don't make her regret that she agreed to have sex with you. Ryle also invites himself to dinner with Lily and her mom, so this is where he's gonna meet her for the first time. At dinner, Lily ends up seeing Atlas work at the restaurant, and she is so shocked. They end up having some alone time together when they're pulled off to the side. During this brief conversation, when they're reunited, he mentions that he wishes they had run into each other a year ago, because obviously he could tell that Lily is with Ryle now. When they go back to the dinner, Lily does not tell Ryle that she ran into Atlas and tries to avoid going back to the restaurant again because she already knows that this shit is about to get messy. So in the next few chapters, Lily continues reading her journal. There's a part where Alice gets really sick. They stay at her home while they try to write out his sickness and watch Finding Nemo. And it's really unfortunate that these kids have latched onto Ellen Degeneres as their parasocial celebrity relationship because now they're coping through their trauma with lines from the movie. We watched Finding Nemo, and when that part came up where Marlin was looking for Nemo and he was feeling really defeated, Dory said to him, when life gets you down, do you want to know what you gotta do? Just keep swimming. just keep swimming, just keep swimming, just keep swimming, swimming, swimming. Atlas grasped my hand when Dory said that. He didn't hold it like a boyfriend holds his girlfriend's hand. He squeezed it like he was saying that was us. He was Marlin and I was Dory, and I was helping him swim. Just keep swimming, I whispered to him. Unfortunately, this is gonna be the inspirational quote that they will constantly reference to each other. I feel for them and everything that they've been through, but every time they say this line, it just takes me out completely. In the next journal entry, Alice tells Lily that he got in touch with his uncle and that he's gonna be able to stay with him in Boston, but he doesn't know for sure if he's leaving or not, and it's implied that what is keeping him here in this small town is his feelings for Lily. Their feelings for each other have been building up for a while, and he ends up kissing her. Then in the next journal entry, it's a week later, they've become more intimate while avoiding talking about Boston. It's pretty much like an inevitable reality that their time together is very limited, and so they don't want to even think about that. At some point, he gives her this little gift, which is a heart that he carved out of wood. He's also there to comfort Lily whenever she overhears her dad beating her mom again. Just, you know, all of these little moments that get them even closer together. Then in present day, when the shop has its grand opening, the business is doing well. Afterward, Lily is hanging out with Ryle, Alyssa, and Marshall. They're reminiscing about when they were younger. And this is when Lily finds out that Ryle and Alyssa actually had an older brother who passed away when they were kids. The day is still pretty good though, because again, the shop did really well. Alyssa turns out to be pregnant, and they have been trying for a while, so it's huge news. Ryle and Lily even make it official as boyfriend and girlfriend, so there's lots to celebrate. It's pretty much like the best day ever. We get a time skip where Ryle and Lily have now been officially dating for 3 months, and everything has been going well up until then, because one night when Ryle and Lily are hanging out, Ryle burns himself on a casserole dish that he's trying to take out the oven without a mitt, and so Lily is like laughing at the little accident, but Ryle does not think it's funny because his hands are, you know, his career as a neurosurgeon, and he's supposed to perform this rare surgery on these conjoined twins, and that's supposed to be like a really big deal. Like, this guy is super into his career, so he's very pissed that she laughs, and he ends up pushing her, and she hits her head. So she wakes up a little bit later. She's bleeding, and when she realizes what happened in like 15 seconds, suddenly everything has changed. She's reminded of what happened with her dad. Even when he apologizes and says it was an accident, she still hears it in her dad's voice. Ryle is super regretful, and he keeps on saying that he's sorry. He explains that he panicked because of the surgery that he needs to do next week, but then he's like, you know, I don't care about the hand, I just want to make sure that you're okay. They're both really devastated. It's a super sad and confusing time for both of them. And then she tells herself there's no way that he's like my dad. He wouldn't be that kind of person. So he tries to comfort her by bringing her to the bedroom, and for some weird reason, they end up having sex. I need to feel his sorrow, his regret. I get both of these things in the way he kisses me. I spread my legs for him, and his sorrow comes in another form. Slow, apologetic thrusts inside of me. Every time he enters me, he whispers another apology. And by some miracle, every time he pulls out of me, my anger leaves with him. Girl, this is not how apologies work. Also, how does one thrust apologetically? He's like, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. Like, what is going on? Unfortunately, I'm going to reveal myself to be a clown again, because the same thing has happened to me and my ex. The way my tears were not even dry yet by the time he got on top of me, so what right do I have to even make fun of this? Truly, when you are a young straight woman, your life is in the trenches. So of course she forgives him. She does say that if anything violent happens again, she will leave him. We'll see about that. I love him. What happened in the kitchen tonight is something that I'm confident won't happen again. Not after seeing how upset he is that he hurt me. All humans make mistakes. What determines a person's character aren't the mistakes we make. It's how we make those mistakes and turn them into lessons rather than excuses. Bitch, this is not a fucking fortune cookie. Your man is an abuser, and you need to join clown school like the rest of us. So in the next chapter, they go to dinner with Alyssa and Marshall at the same restaurant where Atlas works, because even though Lily has been trying to avoid that restaurant, Alyssa just loves the food there, and she picks that specific restaurant to celebrate that she's gonna have a baby. Ryle tells them that she has slipped on olive oil in the kitchen, hence the injury in the corner of her eye. Quite a convenient story. Who knew that life was like a game of Mario Kart and you can just slip on a fucking banana peel? and make an oopsie daisy like that. They don't question it, and then after dessert, Atlas comes to the table because the waiter wants to introduce them to the chef, and it turns out Atlas is the chef. He fulfilled his dream of, you know, cooking food for a living. And then Atlas immediately clocks the injury on her eye, then clocks the bandage wrapped around Ryle's hand, and then looked back to her eye, and then he's got this whole shit all figured out. So he has to leave abruptly before he murders Ryle. So Lily's like, oh my god, he clocked me, he knows what's going on. She goes to freak out in the bathroom, and then that is when Atlas steps inside and locks the door behind them. What happened? He asks. I shake my head. Nothing. His eyes are narrow, still ice blue, but somehow burning with fire. You're lying, Lily. I muster enough of a smile to get me by. It was an accident. Atlas laughs, but then his face falls flat. Leave him. He's not like that, Atlas. It wasn't like that. Ryle is a good person. Funny, you sound just like your mother. Leave him, Lily. If it's any comparison at all, I'm more scared of you right now than I've ever been of him. My words make Atlas pause for a moment. His nod starts out slowly and then gets more prominent as he steps away from the door. I certainly didn't mean to make you feel uncomfortable. Just trying to repay the concern you've always shown me. Dude, imagine taking a shit in this bathroom and then you hear this conversation going on outside. I would be clenching my butthole just to hear the tea. Both shots were fired in this convo. I'd be like, what's happened? Whose side am I on? And then to add to the gaggery, Lily opens the door and finds Ryle outside, and he catches her with Atlas. Atlas steps around me and turns towards the door to the kitchen as if Ryle doesn't even exist to him. Ryle's eyes are glued to Atlas's back. Keep walking, Atlas. Right when Atlas reaches the kitchen doors, he pauses. No, 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 keep walking. In what becomes one of the most dreadful moments I can imagine, he spins around and strides towards Ryle, grabbing him by the collar of his shirt. Almost as soon as it happens, Ryle forces Atlas back and slams him against the opposite wall. Atlas lunges for Ryle again, this time shoving his forearm against Ryle's throat, pitting him against the wall. You touch her again and I'll cut your fucking hand off and shove it down your throat, you worthless piece of shit. Atlas, stop, I yell. Atlas releases Ryle forcefully, taking a huge step back. Ryle is breathing heavily, staring at Atlas long and hard. Then his focus moves directly to me. He says his name with familiarity. Why is Ryle saying Atlas's name like that? Like he's heard me say it before. I've never told him about Atlas. Wait, I did. That first night on the roof, it was one of my naked truths. Ryle lets out a disbelieving laugh and points at Atlas, but he's still looking at me. This is Atlas, the homeless boy you pity fucked? When you are running on 1 hour of sleep and you're stuck on an international flight and you have nothing else to read but this book and you get to this part, you too would have been gagged and gooped like I was. I enjoyed reading this book when I got to this part because I love messy bitches, I love drama, and I love it when an abuser gets punched out. It's one of my guilty pleasures, okay? So the other waiters come in to separate the guys and break up the fight. Atlas yells at Ryle to get the hell out of his restaurant, and so they leave. It says, I follow Ryle outside and he's walking towards the parking lot. I run to catch up to him and he just stops and punches at the air. I didn't bring my fucking car, he yells, frustrated. Dude, fucking chill. Yeah, it really hurts to get punched out, doesn't it? Not so nice when you're at the end of it, isn't it? He puts both hands on my cheeks and looks me dead in the eyes. If you don't want to be with me, ... please tell me right now, Lily. Because when I saw you with him, ... that hurt. I never want to feel that again. And if it hurts this much now, I'm terrified to think of what it could do to me a year from now. I don't want anyone else, Ryle. I only want you. He forces the saddest smile I've ever seen on a human. He pulls me to him and holds me there. I wrap my arms around him as tight as I can as he presses his lips to the side of my head. I love you, Lily. God, I love you. I squeeze him tight, pressing a kiss to his shoulder. I love you too. And that is where we end this very dramatic chapter. In the very next one, we see Atlas visiting Lily's flower shop with a gift that he bought for her 3 years ago. Turns out he had been holding on to this gift for all these years just in case he ever ran into her. I came here to apologize to you, he says. It's fine. It was a misunderstanding. Ryle is fine. He laughs under his breath. That's not what I'm apologizing for. I'd never apologize for defending you. You weren't defending me, I say. There was nothing to defend. He tilts his head, giving me the same look that he gave me last night, the one that lets me know how disappointed in me he is. I clear my throat. Why are you apologizing then? I wanted to apologize for saying that you sounded like your mother. That was hurtful, and I'm sorry. Wow, accountability? What a rare sight to behold in this book. He also sees that on her work desk there is a sticky note and her phone and a marker, so he takes all of them, he writes his number on the note, and then he hides it between the phone case and the phone itself, and he tells her to keep it hidden there just in case she ever needs it. Then he's about to leave, and then Lily says, Atlas, wait, what Ryle said to you last night? I never ... I never said that to him. He was hurt and upset, and he misconstrued my words from a long time ago. Atlas replies, Believe me, Lily, I know that wasn't a pity fuck. I was there. He walks out the door and his words knock me straight into my seat. The gasp, I would have gasped if someone I hooked up with had said that to me. Sorry, but Atlas clearly has the bigger dick here. Like, it ain't even a competition, okay? Nobody had to pull their pants down to prove it, but I just know. So after he leaves, she opens the gift that he left for her. It turns out to be a book that Ellen Degeneres wrote, like one of those celebrity memoirs, and she also had autographed it. Lily, Atlas says, just keep swimming. Signed, Ellen Degeneres. Listen, do we know that Ellen generally wouldn't give a shit if Lily lives or dies? Yes. Is the Finding Nemo line very cheesy? Also yes. But I thought this was a sweet gift, you know, considering their circumstances and how they latched onto that as a source of comfort, especially because he must have seen that book when it came out a couple years ago and thought of Lily and then bought it for her even though they had lost touch. So yeah, I like Atlas. And you know what? I would fuck him too. But we've already established that I have low standards, so moving on. In the next chapter, Lily reads Ellen's book, which encourages her to also finally read the last entry of her journal, which is where we find out how Lily and Atlas lost touch with each other. Basically, Atlas moved to Boston and Lily was understandably very depressed because she really loved him and she was grieving over him moving away. She even says, every night I cry myself to sleep and I whisper, just keep swimming. I get it, and I feel bad for you, and I genuinely do want to root for this love story, but when you pull shit like this, I cannot take it seriously. Fortunately, Atlas comes back to save her from the trenches. He visits Lily a month and a half later on her 16th birthday. She's super happy by the surprise. They're reunited, they're catching up, and he tells her he has something serious to say. He said the first night he went to that old house, he wasn't there because he needed a place to stay. He went there to kill himself. My hands went up to my mouth because I had no idea things had gotten that bad for him. So bad that he didn't even want to live anymore. I hope you never know what it's like to feel that lonely, Lily, he said. He went on to tell me that the first night he was at that house, he was sitting in the living room floor with a razor blade to his wrist. Right when he was about to use it, my bedroom light went on. You were standing there like an angel, backlit by the light of heaven, he said. I couldn't take my eyes off you. This is so melodramatic, but I was eating this shit up when I read it. I guess I'm just trauma bonded with them. Lily, life is a funny thing. We only get so many years to live it, so we have to do everything we can to make sure those years are as full as they can be. We shouldn't waste time on things that might happen someday, or maybe even never. I knew what he was saying, that he was leaving for the military and he didn't want me to hold on to him while he was gone. He wasn't really breaking up with me because we weren't ever really together. We had just been two people who helped each other when we needed it and got our hearts fused together along the way. I'm going to make a promise to you, he said. When my life is good enough for you to be a part of it, I'll come find you. But I don't want you to wait around for me because that might never happen. Wow, someone who doesn't make false promises to lead someone on? Someone who is aware that he has too much shit to unpack and doesn't want to burden that on someone that he cares about? Who would have thought? So he gives her her birthday present, which is a magnet that says Boston, because they promised each other that they would find each other again in Boston. And then there's a little slogan at the bottom that says, where everything is better. They say I love you to each other, they kiss, and then they end up having sex. It's a very emotionally charged moment because, you know, it's basically a goodbye. But overall, it seems like the best birthday ever thanks to Atlas surprising her until shit goes down. You see, she had not locked her bedroom door because she didn't expect Atlas to visit that night. So Lily's dad had heard her talking to someone. He ends up storming up there and opens the door to find both of them in bed. And then he ends up beating the shit out of Atlas with a baseball bat. The scene doesn't describe it in detail, but you can imagine that, you know, it's really bad. Someone ends up having to call the ambulance because Atlas is literally covered in blood. Lily's also having a panic attack, so the ambulance is also for her. And the dad in the end doesn't even get arrested because he's the mayor of the town. The town also found out that Atlas had been homeless, so it just seemed like the dad had been saving his daughter from this homeless guy that had manipulated her into having sex with him. And after that, she never ever hears from Atlas again or even knows where he went or if he was okay. That was literally like the most traumatic goodbye you could have with someone that was your first love ever. So obviously she's very depressed. She constantly thinks about him, even growing up and moving away. At some point in college, she realizes she has to accept that maybe Atlas wasn't supposed to be her whole life. Maybe he was only supposed to be a part of it. To commemorate her first love that she never really had closure on, she ends up getting a tattoo of a tiny heart that looks like the wooden one that he carved for her and puts it in the place where he used to kiss her, which I think, if I remember, was like somewhere near the collarbone collarbone. And now that she's reunited with Atlas, she's obviously going through a lot of emotions, but she has to remind herself that things are different now and maybe their lives are where they're supposed to be. She loves Ryle, he loves her. It is all good in the hood, or at least that is what she keeps telling herself. We get another time skip after this where Lily and Ryle have been dating for 6 months. Ryle ends up proposing to Lily by saying, let's go to Vegas and get married. This is the stupidest thing she could have done in the entire book. As a self-admitted dumb bitch myself, even I would not marry someone after such a short time. This is very much a heat in the moment thing because Ryle had overheard Lily and Alyssa talking where Alyssa asked if Lily would marry him and Lily was like, if he asked me right now, I think I would say yes. And then Ryle comes out and he's like, bet, I'd marry the shit out of you. Let's do it right now. So they're just blinded by love and being in the honeymoon stage of their relationship, and so they go off to get hitched. And now for those of you who are worried that they might be rushing into things, don't worry, because they discussed their future along the way to Vegas to make sure that they were on the same page. Ryle and I talked about kids on the flight to Vegas. I wanted to make sure that possibility was open for discussion in our future before I made a commitment to spend the rest of my life with him. He said it was definitely open for discussion. Then we cleared the air about a lot of other things that might cause problems down the road. I told him I wanted separate checking accounts, but since he makes more money than me, he has to buy me lots of presents all the time to keep me happy. He agreed. He made me promise him I'd never become vegan. That was a simple promise. I love cheese too much. I told him we had to start some kind of charity, or at least donate to the ones Marshall and Alyssa like. He said he already does, and that made me want to marry him even sooner. He made me promise to vote. He said I was allowed to vote Democratic, Republican, or Independent as long as I made sure to vote. We shook on it. What the fuck do you mean that he made you promise to vote? Were you not voting before? How were you so based when you were a kid and you were anti-military, but you never voted when you became an adult? Also, how do you care so much about doing charity and social work, but at the same time you don't vote? Because I sure as hell know that you're not abstaining voting in protest of the two-party system and for Palestine. I know this Lily bitch is not that based. We get another time skip to 6 weeks after the wedding. They are happy in love until once again shit goes down. This happens when Ryle accidentally drops Lily's phone, which means that the cover popped off and he ends up seeing the number that's hidden in the back. This is happening while Lily was in the shower. So when he's on his own, he calls the number and he hears Atlas's voicemail. He is so pissed off by this that he ends up throwing the phone across the room and it shatters. Bitch, he better be paying for Apple Care because that shit is expensive. He storms off while Lily is trying to reason with him and it says, I opened the door and run after him. He's taking the stairs 2 at a time and I finally reach him when he's at the landing of the 2nd floor. I shove myself in front of him and grab his shirt in my fist. Ryle, please let me explain. He grabs my wrist and pushes me away from him. Then we get kind of like a scene jump where it cuts to her waking up to him trying to take care of her wound, and she's wondering why her head hurts, and he tells her, you fell down the stairs. You might have a concussion, he says, matter of fact. You have a small cut on your lip. I just bandaged up the cut on your eye. You don't need stitches. His voice is cold. Does it hurt anywhere else? Your arms? Legs? He sounds just like a doctor and nothing like a husband. You pushed me, I say through tears. It's all I can think or say or see. You fell, he says calmly, 5 minutes ago, right after I found out what a fucking liar I married. Excuse me? Be fucking for real. He said she just fell. He was like, diva down. My bad, I should have been careful before I ran into your hand, shoving me down the stairs. Girl, you gotta go. You gotta fucking pack it up and just leave. So he leaves her alone in the apartment as she's crying, and a few minutes later he comes back. He presses his forehead to our bedroom door and I watch as he hits his head against it once, twice, 3 times. This dude has fucking issues. I would have been like, hey, let me also help you smash your head against the wall several times, you fucking weirdo. He turns and rushes at me, falling to his knees at the side of the bed. He grabs both my hands and he squeezes them. Lily, he says, his whole face twisting in pain. Please tell me it's nothing. He brings his hand to the side of my head and I can feel his hands shaking. I can't take this. I can't. Please tell me you aren't seeing him. Please. It hurts so much, Lily. I love you so much. Dude, there are higher priorities at stake here. Even if she was cheating on him, that does not warrant him pushing her off the stairs. He's crying over how it hurts so much. I'm like, bro, you're talking about your unregulated emotions. You know what actually hurts? The bruise on her head when you played Stairmaster with her. I forgot his number was even there, I say quietly. The day after the fight in the restaurant, ... he came to the store. You can ask Alyssa. He was only there for 5 minutes. He took my phone from me and he put his number inside of it because he didn't believe I was safe with you. I forgot it was there, Ryle. I've never even looked at it. He didn't believe you were safe. Turns out Atlas was a fucking prophet, wasn't he? He said, I know how the story goes. Tale as old as time. Lily tells Ryle to get the fuck out of her apartment, period. Ryle is so shocked by this and he says, Lily, you fell down the stairs. By this point, he has said that she fell down the stairs 3 times. It's almost like if you say something multiple times, you can try to convince yourself that it was true, you know, like manifesting. He's like, I didn't punch you, your face ran into my fist. So she screams at him to get out, get out, get out. In the next chapter, Alyssa finds out what happened and she insists that Ryle tells Lily about his past. This is where he confesses to her that just like the young patient that he lost the night that they met, you know, when he was kicking around the marine polymer chairs, his brother had actually died of a gunshot wound because Ryle had accidentally shot him. I can't hold in the tears. I just start crying and he wraps his arms tightly around my waist and lays his head on my lap. I shot him, Lily, my best friend, my big brother. I was only 6 years old. I didn't even know I was holding a real gun. Okay, how is this related to you pushing her down the stairs though? So you're telling me you killed someone you loved by accident and now you're gonna kill me on purpose if I stay in this relationship? What's the correlation here? I also find it really weird that Alyssa, who even though she is Ryle's sister, she's also Lily's best friend, her first reaction, instead of her telling Lily to leave him or try to comfort Lily and make sure that she's okay, her first reaction is to get Ryle to tell her some sob story about his childhood trauma. They clearly want Lily to hear the story so that she has context for why he has rage issues. Okay, sure, but at the end of the day, he has still hurt Lily not just once, but twice this time. I would never tell you this because I wanted to excuse my behavior. You have to believe that. Alyssa wanted me to tell you all this because since that happened, there are things I can't control. I get angry, I black out. I've been in therapy since I was 6 years old, but it is not my excuse. It is my reality. When you ran after me last night, I swear I had no intention of hurting you. I was upset and angry, and sometimes when I feel that much emotion, something inside of me just snaps. I don't remember the moment I pushed you, but I know I did. I did. All I was thinking when you were running after me was how I needed to get away from you. I wanted you out of my way. I didn't process that there were stairs around us. I didn't process my strength compared to yours. I fucked up, Lily. I fucked up. You are my wife. I'm supposed to be the one who protects you from the monsters. I'm not supposed to be one. He holds me with so much desperation, he begins to shake. I have never, in all my life, felt so much pain radiating from one human. This explanation for abuse does not make sense to me because if he has some disorder in his brain that makes him black out in anger, he would not be a doctor because that's really dangerous. If someone has these blackouts that they cannot predict and they cannot remember and they cannot control, he would not have a job that is highly responsible like a neurosurgeon. But for some reason, the abuse is just funneled to Lily specifically. So what's strange to me is that these blackouts are not occurring in any other part of his life except for this specific relationship. So there's this weird disconnect because how is he able to maintain his emotions when being a professional but not with his wife? But sure, let's say that there is a disorder out there that causes selective rage blackouts. That's something he should have disclosed to her before getting serious with this girl and even marrying her, because that is legitimately a danger to everybody involved. This isn't how this was supposed to be. My whole life I knew exactly what I would do if a man ever treated me the way my father treated my mother. It was simple. I would leave and it would never happen again, but I didn't leave. And now here I am with bruises and cuts on my body at the hands of the man who was supposed to love me, at the hands of my own husband, and still I'm trying to justify what happened. It was an accident. He thought I was cheating on him. He was hurt and angry and I got in his way. Yes, he screwed up last night, but he's here and he's trying to make me understand his past and why he reacted the way he did. Humans aren't perfect and I can't let the only example I've ever witnessed of marriage weigh in on my own marriage. I feel like when it comes to depicting abuse in this book, I feel like in terms of the stuff that Lily is thinking in her head, I could agree that it is accurate to how people end up in toxic relationships because it's a lot easier to be rational about it when you're not involved in the actual situation. But I think in terms terms of like portraying the abuse on Ryle's end and trying to explain where it's coming from, I don't know if this is accurate because abuse isn't due to these rage blackouts. Like when abuse happens, it's not something that was like a switch that got flipped and this person had like no recollection at all. I think what Colleen Hoover is trying to go for is showing that this person is a guy that is doing something horrible like abuse, but we're supposed to somehow understand or feel sorry for him because it's something that he can't control. But the thing is, I don't think Colleen is capable of writing something nuanced like that, because then it just ends up almost excusing his character and even trying to make him seem sympathetic. Or maybe that's what she was trying to do. Maybe she was trying to make him sympathetic so that we can understand that this is horrible, but like he's just a person too. And I don't know how I feel about that. Maybe it could be pulled off, but not from this author. You aren't a bad person, Ryle. I know that. You can still protect me. When you're upset, just walk away and I'll walk away. We'll leave the situation until you're calm enough to talk about it, okay? You are not a monster, Ryle. You're only human. And as humans, we can't expect to shoulder all of our pain. Sometimes we have to share it with the people who love us so we don't come crashing down from the weight of it all. But I can't help you unless I know you need it. Ask me for help. We'll get through this. I know we can. Help me, Lily, he whispers. I need you to help me. If I think about it from the perspective of someone who loves their partner and wants to help them and feel sympathy for them, I can see how this would be a good response. I just hate it though because that means she's gonna stay with him. Especially with him being like, help me, Lily. It's like, bitch, don't burden your issues onto her. What, now she's a punching bag and your therapist too? Also, you still need to buy her a new phone. So if Colleen Hoover was trying to frame this character as someone who is an abuser, but also a human, and as a human being who deserves love and care like everyone else in the world, one person cannot be expected to shoulder all the pain on their own. Sure, we can go with that. No one deserves to be alone. No one deserves to be in pain all by themselves. This is what a therapist is for. This is not something for Lily to bring on the burden herself, and that's why it's not gonna work out. I also see the difference between Ryle and my father. Ryle is compassionate. He does things my father never would have done. He donates to charity, he cares about other people, he puts me before everything. Ryle would never in a million years make me park in the driveway while he took the garage. Girl, if you have to list a bunch of nice things he does to cancel out the abuse that he has inflicted upon you, and one of those things is his parking space, we have truly grasped the thinnest of straws. Also, lots of shitty people donate to charity, so we really can't be rationalizing this way. Later on, she mentions another fight that they have a week later, but that fight actually ends up being resolved without anyone getting hurt. The context for this fight is that he wants to take on this job in another state, but she doesn't want to move away from Boston. So then he gets mad and knocks over a vase of flowers, but he's like, you know what? I'm gonna take a walk for an hour or two, I'll come back, and then we can continue this discussion. So that's exactly what he does. He comes back later, much calmer and gentler, and he says between his career and her, he's gonna choose her, and they're gonna stay in Boston. She's like, yay, so we solved her problems. We can work through this after all. Other good news, Alyssa also finally gives birth to the baby. Lily and Ryle are there to meet their niece, and it says, Ryle and I both look at Alyssa, and she smiles teary-eyed. We wanted to name her after someone Marshall and I both think the world of, so we added an E to your name. We're calling her Riley. Do not name your daughter after your abusive brother. Especially by this point, you know that your brother fucking abused his own wife. You might as well have just named the kid Renesmee. Like, that actually would have been a lot better. Your baby's name is your brother's name, but with a typo. Like if you were spelling his name and a cat accidentally stepped on your keyboard. Be fucking for real here. So the night that Riley is born, Lily comes home to find Ryle in a strange mood. She can tell something is off already, and he asks where she got the Boston magnet that's hanging on their fridge. She obviously doesn't want to admit that she got it from Atlas on her 16th birthday, so she pretends she doesn't remember. He makes her then read an article in the newspaper, because the article is talking about the top businesses in Boston right now, and it names Atlas. The owner, Atlas Corrigan, is a two-time award-winning chef and also a United States Marine. It's no secret what the acronym for his highly successful restaurant, BIBS, stands for Better in Boston. I gasp. everything is better in Boston. But when interviewed regarding his most recent award, the chef finally revealed the true history of the meaning behind the name. It's a long story. It was an homage to someone who had a huge impact on my life, someone who meant a lot to me. She still means a lot to me. When asked if the girl was aware he named a restaurant after her, Chef Corrigan smiled knowingly and said, "Next question." So then Lily puts the newspaper down, she walks to the bedroom, and she finds her bed totally littered with a bunch of her crap just spilled all over the bed. For context, they had just moved to a new apartment together, so she had this moving box that was marked with Lily's stuff. Turns out Ryle had opened it in the process of moving and found the journal that she kept as a teenager and read the journal. And we are about to experience a very random, sporadic rage blackout that he seemingly does not remember every time it happens. He ends up grabbing Lily and he bites the part of her body where she put the tattoo. It's obviously very painful. She's screaming out in pain. She's trying to get away from him and he's yelling at her, why is this guy still here and everything? The magnet on her fridge, the journal in her closet, that tattoo on your body that used to be my favorite part of you. He ends up cornering her to the bed and gets on top of her and attempts to force himself on top of her, which is terrible because she's literally having a flashback to when she saw her dad do the same thing to her mom. She bites his tongue and he ends up headbutting her and she knocks out. By the time she wakes up, she is very woozy and he is just apologizing profusely. And when they fall asleep together, she wakes up later to sneak away and calls Atlas to come and get her. Atlas picks her up, takes her to the hospital, and that is where she discovers that she is pregnant. Truly the worst time to find out that you are pregnant. I mean, I know what I would have done to get rid of that situation, but something tells me that Colleen Hoover's books are not very pro-abortion. She stays at Atlas's place for a while. The whole time he's very caring for her, he gives her space. He's truly the MVP of this whole book. When Ryle gets back in touch with Lily, he reveals that he is leaving for England for a couple days for a work trip, and he tells her that she can come home and he won't be there so she can take all the time and space that she needs. Atlas drives her back home and then she says, I have a lot to work through, Atlas, a lot, and I'm scared I won't be able to do it with you in my life. I hope you don't take offense to that because if anything, it's a compliment. So they say goodbye, but before he leaves, he hugs her and says, I know this is the last thing you need to hear right now, but I have to say it because I've walked away from you too many times without saying what I really want to say. In the future, ... if by some miracle you ever find yourself in the position to fall in love again, ... fall in love with me. You're still my favorite person, Lily. Always will be. You know, maybe Lily is less messy than me, because I would have slept with this man immediately. I've accepted at this point that if I remained straight and men were interested in me, I would have been a messy, dumb bitch. Because it really was that easy. But look, I think it's sweet, okay? I think when you are in a very vulnerable position, you just want to be loved and taken care of, and I can definitely see myself making bad decisions that are probably worse than Lily would have. So I just want to acknowledge how humbled I am to reach this conclusion. So then in the next chapter, Lily and Alyssa are hanging out and Alyssa can tell that something is off and she demands an answer. So then Lily tells her everything. Alyssa lifts her eyes to mine and squeezes my hands. My brother loves you, Lily. He loves you so much. You have changed his entire life and have made him someone that I never thought he could be. As a sister, I wish more than anything that you could find a way to forgive him. But as your best friend, I had to tell you that if you take him back, I will never speak to you again. Period. That is the answer that you should have said the first time you found out something happened. After that, Lily and Ryle meet again. Lily is angry and yelling at him as she should, but Ryle finds out about the baby and that changes everything for him. He says that he was gonna say goodbye to her and accept the job offer to go to another state, but now he feels like he has to stay because of their baby. He keeps on saying, I love you, and then she says that she wishes the baby wasn't his, which I agree with. So I'm glad that Lily's sticking up for herself. Later on, she meets with her mother, and she and her mother bond over the abuse they're both facing. And it's really a full circle moment because growing up, she kind of judged her mom for still staying with her husband, and now she's in the same situation, which really puts things into perspective. Most importantly, the mother urges Lily to not be like her. It's time for Lily to break the cycle. So Lily's got a lot to think about as we go through the progression of the pregnancy. During this time, Ryle is doing a lot to be there for the baby by putting the crib together, carrying stuff for Lily, just like being on good behavior to try to show that he's gonna be a good father. They have a conversation where Ryle pleads to her that he wants to give her space but also wants to be a father for the kid, to which Lily expresses hesitation because because who knows if Ryle might accidentally hurt the baby. I'll never deny you a relationship with your child, but I'm going to need you to be really patient with me while you rebuild all the trust you've broken. Maybe this is a hot take, but I think you can absolutely deny a relationship with the child if the father was abusive to you. There is no trust to rebuild, period. This is like one of those things that happens and now like you can't undo it and you can't take any chances. He even agrees to the terms that she has, which is to just like be patient with her and not pressure her as she tries to rebuild the trust and come to a conclusion. That's already a sign that you gave him too much wiggle room. Even aside just being a father to the baby, in terms of their relationship with one another, she's not sure if she wants to give a second chance for that either, because she doesn't want to be persuaded by pregnancy hormones or make such a big decision like that before even giving birth to the baby. So then we reach to the final chapter before the epilogue, which is when she gives birth to a daughter. She names the baby Emerson, which is the same name as Ryle's brother. I really don't know about that choice, but that's because I don't think the baby should have anything to do with Ryle. But both Ryle and Lily are overjoyed by the birth of this baby and they love her. And it's here while Lily is carrying the baby in her arms that she knows what her decision must be, which is to divorce Ryle. He's begging her not to do this, which is when she asks him what he would do if their daughter told him that her husband had hit her and pushed her down the stairs too. How would he react to that? And that's when he knows this is the better decision, even though he's crying about it. Funny how some men don't learn how to treat women properly unless they apply the same situation to their daughters, but okay. No matter how many good moments she might share with Ryle throughout her lifetime, I know from experience that it would only be the worst ones that stuck with her. Cycles exist because they are excruciating to break. It takes an astronomical amount of pain and courage to disrupt a familiar pattern. Sometimes it seems easier to just keep running in the same familiar circles rather than facing the fear of jumping and possibly not landing on your feet. My mother went through it. I went through it. I'll be damned if I allow my daughter to go through it. I kiss her on the forehead and make her a promise. It stops here with me and you. It ends with us. I actually think this is a good line to end on. So good for her for divorcing Ryle, but this is when we get to the epilogue and I have mixed feelings about this. So in the epilogue, after some time has passed after the baby, Lily runs into Atlas while pushing her baby in a stroller. The one good thing I can say about this is that I like that she comes to this happy ending and conclusion on her own without Atlas being like a white knight for her and being the reason why she divorces Ryle in the first place. It was good for her to make that as an independent decision for the sake of her daughter. That way, when she meets up with Atlas later, it's like the cherry on top that she can actually be with someone who's good for her. However, while they are talking and catching up, she ends up getting a text from Ryle. We're really late, I say. Ryle has been waiting for half an hour. When I say Ryle's name, there's a sadness that reaches Atlas's eyes, but he tries to disguise it. He nods and slowly steps aside for us to pass. It's his day to have her, I clarify, saying more in those 6 words than I could in most full conversations. So basically, Ryle has partial custody of the kid to the point where he can even have days with the kid by himself. Absolutely fucking nuts. We literally see her meet up with Ryle, drop the kid off to him in his car, and then she runs off to go back to Atlas. So we see her running back to try to catch Atlas again. She calls for him across the street, and this is the first thing that she says as she catches up to him. I'm out of breath, panting and nervous. I forgot to tell you Emerson's middle name. I put my hands on my hips and exhale. It's Dory. At this point, I don't know what's worse, the name that is Ryle but with an E at the end, or the name after your abuser's dead brother that he accidentally shot with a gun, or the name after Ellen Degeneres' character on Finding Nemo. There's really a lot of contenders here. Anyway, now that they're reunited properly, both Atlas and Lily decide that they're ready to be in a relationship together. Then the book ends, and this is the last line of the entire novel. I close my eyes when I feel his lips meet the spot on my collarbone. He presses a gentle kiss there, and it feels just like the first time he kissed me there all those years ago. He brings his mouth to my ear, and in a whisper, he says, "You can stop swimming now, Lily. We finally reached the shore." It's like we have this sweet moment, and then all of a sudden we get like an Ellen Degeneres reference or a Finding Nemo reference. It's a lot. But the important thing is she has a happy ending now, and she broke the cycle. Kinda, sorta. She did divorce Ryle. But again, why is Ryle around the kid? Imagine if she had told him that she was gonna go run off to see Atlas again. What would have happened? Would he have just been in like a blind fury and started like drop kicking the kid to the curb? I think the answers for why these were the decisions for the happy ending could be be found in the author's note. So as we know, the book is inspired by Colleen Hoover's parents and how they were in an abusive relationship. Despite that, Colleen Hoover did have a positive relationship with her father, knowing that he was an abuser. And I think that's why she incorporated that in the ending. In the author's note, she talks more about how she grew up and how this informs why the book ends the way that it does. Specifically how, besides the memory she had of her dad abusing her mom, every memory beyond that of her dad was a good one. And the mom made sure that Colleen's relationship with her dad was still a good one and didn't involve children into the relationship. So this explains why the happy ending that we get in this fictional story still includes Ryle in the picture and how he has a relationship with his daughter, Emerson. Wait a minute, does he even know why the daughter's middle name is Dory? Imagine if he found out the story behind that. He's gonna punt that kid to the sidewalk. The author's note says, by no means do I intend for Ryle and Lily's situation to define domestic abuse, nor do I intend for Ryle's character to define the characteristics of most abusers. Every situation is different, every outcome is different. I chose to fashion Lily and Ryle's story after my mother and father's. I fashioned Ryle after my father in many ways. They are handsome, compassionate, funny, and smart, but with moments of unforgivable behavior. I don't think I would classify abuse as moments of unforgivable behavior. It's weird because it's almost like the way that she views it is like compartmentalized. It's like they are a good person most of the time, asterisk, and then the asterisk is every now and then they will punch somebody to the wall. You know, like it's a weird way of framing it. Even though Colleen had a good relationship with her father and it seems like she was never abused by the father, that's not a guarantee that that's gonna be the case for other people. And I know that the story is not supposed to be the one defining domestic abuse and it's really just based on her own personal story. But I almost wonder if you are writing such a sensitive topic, maybe there is a level of responsibility that you might have to keep in mind when writing something like this. And besides, even if we were trying to see this within the context of the story only and not apply any like real life logic or comparisons into it, I still think it's irresponsible to have Ryle have any kind of custody with the child, especially unsupervised. Because again, this is a guy that has some kind of weird disorder where he has rage blackouts. His anger can get triggered at any point and it's something that he can't control. Why would you give your baby to someone who has that? Maybe you think the chances are unlikely, but it only takes one time to really fuck up this kid. The kid is in a completely vulnerable state of being, as opposed to you being a wife who can walk away and divorce from this. Let's also assume that never in his life will he ever lay a finger on the baby. What if the kid witnesses him laying a finger on Lily? You don't need to abuse a child to still fuck them up. So if the kid were to ever see Ryle throw himself in uncontrollable anger and have another blackout and hit Lily, like if he finds out that Lily is now forming a relationship with Atlas, what the fuck is gonna happen to them? Especially at that point, the child probably is starting to form a relationship with Ryle and now that just complicates things. Like I feel like it would have been better to have no kind of communication with Ryle at all. And then later when the kid is an adult, it's up to them if they want to form a relationship with their biological father. If I had to guess, I think that Colleen is just projecting her positive relationship with her father onto this story when the story might not necessarily need to show a happy ending involving the father himself. I think you can write a story based on your own personal experiences, but put in creative liberties in order to make it like a more responsible story, or one that doesn't have everything completely happy. Like the kid doesn't need to have a relationship with the dad for it to be all good, you know? Like Ryle could have just fucked off into non-existence and that would have been totally fine. In the acknowledgements, she thanks a bunch of people for helping this book come to life. That includes her mother for having the strength to walk away. She really views her mother as a role model, which is great. But then the weird thing is the very last paragraph in the acknowledgement says, last but not least, to my damned old daddy, Eddie. For context, Eddie is the name of Colleen's father who had dad abused her mother. In fact, abused her so badly that Colleen even says that he had to replace some of the bones in his knuckles because he had punched her mom so hard. So that's how bad it got, right? But she thanks Eddie as part of her acknowledgments. She says, "You aren't here to see this book come to life because at this point the father has passed away. But I know you would have been its biggest supporter. You taught me many things in life, the greatest being that we don't have to end up the same person we once were. I promise not to remember you based on your worst days. I will remember you based on the best, and there were many. I will remember you as a person who was able to overcome what many cannot. Thank you for becoming one of my closest friends, and thank you for supporting me on my wedding day in a way that many fathers would not have. I love you, I miss you." I'm glad that has worked out for you, but I don't know, girl. It's totally her choice if she wants to have a relationship with her father and still be on good terms with him. But I'm conflicted because I don't think it's as easy to compartmentalize abuse like this and say that it was one of his worst days. I don't know, maybe it's just me, but I think when you are an abuser, that is gonna be a part of you. It's not gonna be like one side of you that you can just put away on the shelf whenever you're not having a bad day. I think this book might be like a surface level depiction of abuse where it's accessible to the average person, but in terms of showing more nuance, for as much as the author may attempt to make, I don't think it really hits the bar for that. It almost kind of feels like the abuse happened when Ryle all of a sudden knocked Lily the fuck out, when really there are other factors into it beyond just the physical. Like, yeah, it did start off in the beginning with him being like weird about begging her for sex and all of that, but I'm not even talking about that. I'm talking about like the isolation and manipulation and gaslighting that would come with an abusive person. We didn't really see that from Ryle because the way that abuse was depicted was so compartmentalized. He was like a good guy like 95% of the time, and then the 5% just comes out of nowhere. When in reality, I feel like it's more insidious. This would permeate across different aspects of the guy's life. He's not gonna be some awesome neurosurgeon that is a lovely brother, a lovely friend, whatever. He's gonna be the dude, like before he even punches you out, he's gonna make sure to isolate you from your friends and family. So by the time when we're halfway through the book and he, you know, knocks her out, I don't think it should have been as shocking as the book was trying to make it to be, as if it was gonna be some kind of twist. I think it should have been like a gradual buildup because that is how abuse works. Maybe we could have seen small things in the beginning, like him getting jealous of her talking to another customer, or seeing him go through her stuff, you know, not something that just happens out of nowhere. It almost seems to depict Ryle as a person and his temper as two separate things when they should be part of his character. And I think that's hard to do when you're trying to write a complex character, but you keep on separating the temper from his character and making it seem like, oh, he's a good person, but he has these bad days and he has this uncontrollable rage that he can't help but do. Because then that kind of like makes the narrative sympathize for him when he doesn't need that sympathy, in my opinion. I don't think this book romanticizes abuse because it clearly shows that abuse is wrong and that the main character is able to step away from it. But I do think that it depicts abuse in a more compartmentalized way. I don't think it's the right way to view someone who is abusive. Maybe it's less about romanticizing abuse and more so about romanticizing reconciling with the abuser, because you see how she is still able to have a healthy relationship with the guy now that she's divorced him and they're just gonna be co-parents. I just don't think it is that simple. I feel like in terms of the stuff that Lily was going through in her head and how she felt really trapped in the relationship and how it took a while for her to get out, Colleen Hoover was able to do that right. But on the flip side, I think any kind of explanation for the abuser or why he is doing this or how his mind works or how he has earned forgiveness and reconciliation, I think that part is not right. So that would be my critique of the book. I don't care about the Finding Nemo references. I don't care about the shitty writing. It's really just the fact that I don't think a fucking baby should be alone with this guy. And I don't think that abuse should be described as his worst moments, his bad days, or any kind of language like that, because it makes it seem like abuse is compartmentalized and separated from the rest of his life, and that this is just a small little defect. I have not watched the movie, but when it is available for streaming, I will check it out and see how similar or different it appears to be from the book. So I will see you next time. Goodbye.